Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video of the Global Awareness Report. This episode we are going to be focusing a lot on the Ukraine war because as you can see on the map and as you've probably heard, a major Ukrainian breakthrough has just happened over the past 3 days. They have managed to reach the Oskol River and they've managed to reach the town of Kupiansk. And as you can see, they've broken through the lines here. If I can actually pull up, this is what the front line looked like on September 2nd. I made a copy of the map here. This is what the front line looked like on the 2nd of September. And now this is what the current situation is like. So a major Ukrainian breakthrough. This is something that I will admit I didn't think the Ukrainians had the ability to pull something like this off. I was completely wrong, and I will admit that. I was completely wrong. But we are going to get into the reporting here. So, according to Military Land, it would appear that Ukrainian forces making this offensive are all very highly trained troops. So the 10th Tank Battalion, the 10th Tank Battalion of the 3rd Tank Brigade, the 92nd Mechanized Brigade, the 80th Air Assault Brigade, and the 25th Airborne Brigade, as well as the Dankepol Battalion, the first Special Purpose Brigade, which is approximately 9,000 to 10,000 troops have taken part in this operation here. So they have taken the town of Belaklina, and there are still some Russian forces here on the outskirts of the town apparently, but they've taken most of the town. They've made major breakthroughs, and the Russians have appeared to have just abandoned a lot of this area right here, and Ukrainian forces have been reported fighting at Havyanka right here, which is a major bridge across the river here. And according to Rybar here, I have Rybar's map pulled up right here. There is a lot of fighting in this town, and it appears that the Ukrainians have captured it. This is Rybar on Telegram. He's a pro-Russian channel. He's a very pro-Russian channel, and this is what his map shows Ukrainians have captured here. So this is a major Ukrainian breakthrough, and it has the potential of really changing the war. But the Ukrainians need a few things before this can really manifest into a true game-changing breakthrough. And I thought about what the Ukrainians needed, and I wrote them down here. So a lot of questions are running through my mind right now. How many reserves do Ukrainian forces have? Because if they don't have enough reserves, they're not going to be able to counter the Russian counterattack. They're not going to be able to hold on to the Russian counterattack because there are troops being airlifted into Kupiansk and Izum using transport helicopters. There is Russian mechanized brigades rolling across the river. Russian mechanized forces, according to Rybar. Russian armed forces, armored vehicles are being redeployed to Kupiansk and across the river here. So they need to be able to have reserves that can be deployed anywhere to defend against any Russian counterattack if they want this attack to succeed. How many troops are defending the Ukrainian flanks? Because of the nature of this attack, the Ukrainian forces have not actually secured many of the towns, it looks like. In my opinion, I don't think the Ukrainians have had time to secure many of these small villages right here. And it would appear that they're just focusing on rushing down the main roads. So, if the Russians manage to retake some of these towns and get positions into some of these towns, look at this area here, very forested and hilly. If the Russians can send forces into this area and, be able to hold out, they'll be able to attack the Ukrainian supply lines, which moves on to my next point, which is how long until the Ukrainian forces can secure, these logistics hubs and consolidate their thinned out forces, because the Ukrainians have a lot of thinned out forces. They need to consolidate. They need to set up defensive lines, and they need to prepare for any Russian counterattack if they want this to succeed, because this very well has the potential to, like I said, just completely change the way the war is going. And another point I thought of last night when I was writing these notes was, do Ukrainian forces have artillery support? Do they have enough artillery support? Of course they have artillery, but do they have enough of it? Can they counter fire? Can they set up counter batteries against Russian artillery? Because if not, the Russians will be able to bombard the logistics hubs, and they'll be able to bombard the supply routes, and these forces won't be able to get enough supplies. They'll run out of supplies eventually, of course, and so they need to resupply them. Now, I am not trying to take away from the Ukrainians their very well-deserved victory. Well-deserved as in, this was a brilliant breakthrough. But if Ukraine wants to really consolidate these gains and make it so that they can take back even more of Kharkiv Oblast and actually complete an encirclement of Izum, then they need to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to counter Russian reinforcements and to be able to really set up a defensive position with these highly trained, highly advanced troops that they have here. And these troops will probably be able to beat back any Russian forces that are sent back to them if they have enough reinforcements, if they have enough artillery support. Another question I ask myself is, do Ukrainian forces have effective air support? Can they effectively use attack helicopters and strike aircraft in order to support the offensive? Because many people are making this comparison to Operation Divak Amrain, or Fall Divak Amrain, which in the West, or I suppose is commonly known as the Battle of the Bulge, the German offensive into the Ardennes in 1944, or 1945, I might have actually, no, it was 1944. Very late 1944. I can actually just move over here just for some context. German forces tried to attack through the Ardennes, and they were stopped famously at Bastogne by American, paratroopers. The American paratroopers were surrounded, and they were able to hold on to Bastogne. And Patton's, tank forces were able to reinforce them, stopping the German offensive. Many people are making the comparison to the Battle of the Bulge because the Germans didn't have enough air support, the weather was bad. These are some of the major reasons why that offensive failed. And in the coming days, I've heard that the weather isn't going to be good, that there's going to be a lot of rain by Monday in this area, so The Ukrainians really need to secure as much territory as they can. And I really mean secure. Set up defensive lines, set up garrisons, set up logistics routes. Because this reminds me so much of what the Russians did in the first days of the war. They would rush down the highways. They would rush down the highways and they wouldn't secure the towns behind them. This allowed Ukrainian forces that were still there to harass Russian logistics and harass Russian reinforcements along the supply lines because they couldn't secure the towns. They try to rush for the major cities, and that's what Ukraine is doing right now. So Ukraine needs to secure these little towns, make sure there are no Russian stragglers, that there are no Russian forces that could harass their supply lines. The final note I made, but I've already touched on this. Can Ukrainian forces set up an effective defensive line before Russian reinforcements arrive? They need to find a place. They need to find an area where they can easily defend. So this area right here, Grishovka, this line right here of these villages looks like a pretty good place just from looking at it right now. I mean, there's a river, though this looks very, very tiny. Defend across the Osaltsk River. Osalke, I believe. I'm not sure how to pronounce this river's name, but set up a line right here and find areas where you can dig in, where you can set up positions in the long term, because obviously once the Russian mechanized forces inevitably counterattack, the Ukrainians are going to have to use an elastic defense because they are mechanized forces that are attacking. And overall, the situation is very critical for the Russians, because if the Ukrainians succeed, which they very well could, then the Russian grouping at Izum is put into jeopardy. They would have to pull out or risk encirclement, and that is a lot of territory. This whole area right here, which is about 1,600 kilometers, this whole area right here is put into jeopardy by this offensive. And the Russians fought tooth and nail for Izum. And it is a very good position to attack into the Donbass. So this has the ability to just completely change the war. And I will admit that I am wrong. I was clearly wrong. Ukraine does have this capability of counterattacking, but they need to secure it. They need to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes Russia made in the first months of the war, which is not securing their supply routes, not securing air superiority. You don't necessarily need air supremacy, but you need to be on par, or at least deny Russian air attacks, which Ukraine has the ability to do. If they can at the very least deny Russian air attacks, deny any kind of Russian air campaign in this area, they don't even necessarily have to have their own planes or aircraft. They can just deny the Russians their ability to have planes or aircraft attack Ukrainian forces, and that would probably be good enough. So this is, breaking developments. This is a very fluid front line at the moment, and anything can change. But it would appear that Shevkove has been captured by Ukrainian forces. This whole area right here has been secured by Ukrainian forces. And the Russians have retreated to this river right here. And this is roughly where the front line is right now. This is according to, Rybar and Rybar's mapping. There is also a report that just came out that, Ukrainians have destroyed a command post in Dvorchina, have destroyed a Russian command post, which apparently is the command post, is the command center for the entire Russian grouping in this area, allegedly. I don't know if that's true, but if they did actually manage to destroy this command post, that is a major, major blow to Russia. If the Ukrainian army can manage to truly turn this breakthrough into a success, if they can consolidate the gains, if they can actually encircle Russian forces, this will go down in history. This is you're witnessing the potential study material for every single military commander for the next 100 years. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I mean, this is something that would make Heinz Guderian blush. That would make Erwin Rommel blush. I mean, and credit to NATO, which almost certainly had its role in planning this. Credit to them, because this is just taking away, which side is right, which side is wrong. Just looking at it from a pure military analysis point of view, this is an absolutely brilliant breakthrough. But they need to secure it. That's how all of these things fail, is that they don't manage to secure supply and they don't manage to secure the rural areas besides from the main road. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is Liman. So Ukrainian forces have actually managed to capture these towns right here. They've managed to cross the Seversky Donets River and capture at least these 3 towns, threatening the Russian grouping at Liman. Now, I don't actually know if these towns were under Russian control or if they were just neutral. I'm not sure if the Russians had any kind of force occupying these towns here, but it is now under Ukrainian control. Also, just a quick update, I've awarded Haurivka. I've just given that to the Ukrainians on the map because I'm fairly certain Russia is not in control of this town. Furthermore, Russian forces have captured Kodyma. So the Russians are making progress on the Bakhmut front, although I highly doubt that they are focusing too much on that right now. It would appear that around late August to early September, Ukrainian forces have actually managed to recapture this area. Novoandrivka and Novodanlivka. They actually managed to capture these 2 towns south of Orkiva. This area along the Zaporozhye line, the Zaporozhye front line. So just making adjustments and corrections to the map here. And about the Kherson front, I'm not sure who's in control of Vaskopilia. It is probably Ukrainian, but as of right now, I am not too sure. In the next day or two, maybe even the next few hours, I'll find out, but I'm not entirely sure who's in control of this town. If I were to bet, I would probably say the Ukrainians, but I know for sure that the Ukrainians are in control of Ohaine, so if they're in control of this settlement here, then they're probably in control of Vaskopilia. Ukrainians have also taken the town of Bahaldahne. I'm fairly confident that this settlement right here is under Ukrainian control. I'm not so sure who's in control of this town. It could be Russian or Ukrainian, because there were reports of a Russian counterattack, and the Russian sources said that the counterattack was successful. I don't know. I'm not too sure who's in control of this town at the moment. Same thing with Olesandrivka. I don't know who's in control of this town. Western sources say Ukraine, Russian sources say Russia. So last time I checked here. So watch out. The map is updated. Every time I get the chance to update it. Every time I get the chance, to do research and to update the map, I do. So be sure, check on the map every once in a while. Bookmark it and view it if you want to. So I don't think I have much more to say, but I'm not sure how the Russians could bring this back. If they manage to halt the Ukrainian offensive and manage to put enough pressure on the Ukrainian forces to retreat back to a more secure location to the west, that's probably the best chance the Russians have to control this breakthrough, is to manage to push Ukrainians back to Shevchenko, to Volokhyar. Maybe even manage to retake Shevchenko. But we do have some geopolitical news. And we have some very, very sad news from the United Kingdom. We're just going to get out of the way, of course. As you all know, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed away yesterday. This is just sad for everybody. She was very beloved by pretty much everybody. I mean, no one really disliked her. She was just a very fantastic woman, a very fantastic lady, and a fantastic monarch. I think that's not a very controversial opinion. I think pretty much everyone here can agree on that. Nobody is perfect, but she was a good monarch in my opinion, and the opinion of, I think, pretty much everybody. So hopefully His Majesty King Charles III, who is now who's the new king of Britain, King Charles III, hopefully he can live up to the legacy of his mother. Let's hope for the best. He has a low approval rating. His approval rating is in the 40s right now. But let's hope that he can live up to his mother's legacy. I think that's probably the best thing that we can hope for right now. In more, I suppose, political news, although that is political news, what we just talked about, Liz Truss has become the United Kingdom's 56th Prime Minister on September the 5th. She was appointed by the Queen before her passing, and she's become the new Prime Minister. she is a Remainer. She voted to remain in the European Union, and she has already vowed to curb the rise in energy prices in the United Kingdom. And she's actually a former Liberal Democrat. She's a conservative. But in her youth, she was a Liberal Democrat. I don't know too much about her, and I don't know too much about her policies here. I've been more focused on the war in Ukraine rather than geopolitics at the moment. But the United Kingdom has a new prime minister and a new monarch. So that is very, big news from the United Kingdom here. Out of Germany, the German government has announced a $65 billion euro, which is 56 billion pounds. And pounds and the dollar is about the same, so it's around 56 billion, give or take. $56 billion as well, so a package that is supposed to ease the threat of rising energy costs as Europe struggles with scarce supplies after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and they stopped buying gas and they sanctioned this Russian energy in support of Ukraine. So Europe might face a very harsh winter. They are going to need to do everything they can to scramble and to gather up enough energy in order to heat their countries and heat the people's houses. And it's going to be very difficult to do that. And if these countries fail on doing that, then they're most likely going to have new governments as soon as the people can implement new governments if they fail to meet the heating demands, because it's a very, very big deal. So there's a lot of pressure on the European Union, a lot of pressure on the United Kingdom, and a lot of pressure in this side of the world. In the European continent, there's a big crisis, and there's been a big crisis ever since the refugee crisis that put a lot of strain on the European Union, and now we have COVID and the COVID recession, and then now we have Russian energy and the war in Ukraine, and we have Europe has gone through a lot, and it's a very, very strained continent right now. We are going to move over to Belgrade, although this is not news regarding Serbia, but rather regarding Turkey, because Erdogan has said that the West's quote-unquote provocative policies towards Russia is not correct. He said on the 7th that he did not think that the West's provocative policies towards Russia were correct after the European Union and the G7 proposed a price cap on Russian gas. We talked about that in the last report. Vladimir Putin had earlier threatened to halt all supplies if the EU took such a step, raising the risk of rationing in some of the world's richest countries this winter. Erdogan was speaking at a news conference with the Serbian president, Alexander Vučić, in Belgrade. No need, quote, no need to list the names, but I can clearly say that I do not find the stance that the West is adopting correct, Erdogan said. And he goes on here, so like I said, Turkey has an independent foreign policy. They are a part of NATO, but that doesn't mean that they align with Western geopolitical aims or Russian geopolitical aims. They are their own power, as I've said before, and this is very interesting news because NATO has a member that isn't really living up to what NATO wants out of its members, which is to be, you know, pro-Western. And we are going to actually move on to Uzbekistan here. Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, and I'm pretty sure as well Erdogan himself, the man we just talked about, is going to meet at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Uzbekistan. That organization is holding a meeting of all its members, I believe, in Uzbekistan. I assume that it's being taken place in the capital of Tashkent, although I'm not actually sure. But you know, there's a very long article here. You can, you know, go to the map and read it yourself. We are running out of time here. I want to keep these videos at most 30 minutes, so I believe that was everything. Yes, that's all the headlines for this week that I've found particularly interesting. So, although there is this headline which I just found here, that NATO notes Ukrainian army gains but sees the war dragging on. So according to NATO, the war is going to drag on for a little while. I believe Antony Blinken said that he says the war is going to continue on for a few months even with these gains, which is true. So I believe that is everything. So thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. You know, I am not an expert on these things. I am just an enthusiast about geopolitics and military history and military conflict. So of course, these are just my opinions and my personal analysis, which I tried to keep as close to the truth and as objective as possible. So thank you for watching. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.